Jennifer May Reiland is a painter who has shown her work internationally. In 2022, she released the Diana Tarot, a full tarot deck directly inspired by the life of the late Diana, Princess of Wales. Each card features Jennifer's original watercolor paintings depicting the events from the life of Princess Diana. The Diana Tarot deck has been covered by Vice News. I'm talking with Jennifer today on Third Eyesight. My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. Hey, Jennifer, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, I'm excited to join you.
So tell us where you're based and a little bit about your work as an artist and what your artistic medium is.
So my name is Jennifer May Reiland. I'm a painter and tarot card designer. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York City.
Great. And how long have you been working with the medium of painting?
I mean, I've always been a painter since I can remember. My earliest memories, some of my earliest memories are of drawing and painting. It's always been something that's kind of been at the center of my life. As far as being a professional painter, probably 10 years.
And I read on your website that there are certain themes that play a role in your both in your technique and your themes. And when I first looked at your watercolor works in particular, I was seeing some homages to medieval aesthetic, and I read on your website that actually plays a pretty big role for you, in addition to religion, gender roles. So for you, what are themes that really stand out for you as you prepare your work, or as you conceptualize what you're going to cover in your work?
My work is really inspired by medieval art. It's a huge part of my inspiration. And I'm not sure what's drawn me so much to medieval art, but I've always been really drawn to it. Some of the elements of medieval art that really appeal to me are the narrative quality. I love how medieval art can contain a narrative that takes place over time within one two-dimensional image. So often we can see, and this is something I like to use in my art, we can see one character move across time and space within one image. And that's something I love about medieval art. Another aspect of medieval art that's really important to me is the seamless integration of comedy, tragedy, religious, sacred art, and the kind of most basic day-to-day life, all captured in one image. And there's no separation between these ideas. I think that's really powerful and something I bring to my art.
And I saw also, I mean, I did a little bit of creeping because, I mean, it's my job, I guess, as an interviewer. But I saw that one of your inspirations is Bosch, the artist Bosch, and I totally see what you mean. How a lot of artwork of that time, it told a story, it told a narrative, like you said. And have you ever been to the Met Cloisters Museum?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's one of my favorite places in the
Same.
world, definitely in New York City. And one thing I won the one of the most famous works of art in the cloisters, as I'm sure you know, are the unicorn tapestries. And I've actually done a series of paintings integrating Princess Diana into the unicorn tapestries and kind of placing her there.
Well, one of the cards, I was looking at your Diana tarot deck, and one of your cards has a unicorn in it. Could you actually? We're going to jump into your deck in a second, but because you mentioned the unicorn, that's one detail I noticed on this card that stood out to me. Um, I don't know if you remember which card it was.
Strength, it's strength.
Yes,
Yeah.
the strength card, which
Yeah.
is usually, I mean, traditionally there's in the Rider Waite Smith deck, it's a lion with a female,
Mm.
and this one it's a unicorn with Diana, Princess of Wales. So what was your intention behind having the unicorn on the strength card?
To me, the traditional image of the strength card or the Rider Waite deck, I'm trying to remember exactly, because usually what the strength card is we're kind of seeing this image of maybe masculine or aggressive strength represented by the lion, contrasted with this sort of endurance and female power, the strength that has. And I was interested in that sort of female coded strength, this power to persevere and endure. And that's what I wanted to represent with my strength card in the deck. So I chose the moment where Princess Diana got her divorce decree, finalized her divorce, because this was the moment this was her choice. And she chose to bring an end to this marriage and step forward as an independent woman. And there's a lot of strength in that, of course. And throughout my deck, I really wanted to play and have fun with using the traditional images of tarot. So I thought about the seal, the symbol of Great Britain. It contains a lion and a unicorn. So I imagined having her signing this divorce decree in front of actually a tapestry with this on it. So if you look closely on that card, you also see a lion as well.
That is fascinating. And well, I want to ask you, what was your introduction to tarot in the first place? And then we'll definitely delve into like why Diana.
Um, yeah, hardly even, I mean, like most people, my introduction to tarot was as a very young person, as an early adolescent. I'm not from a tarot family. My mom or no one in my family read tarot, but at a very early age, I saw people reading tarot and I was immediately drawn to it. Like a lot of people, I think I was intimidated by tarot. I thought, oh, wow, you have to memorize all these different meanings. You have to really study it. So I felt, oh no, I can't do that. That's not for me. And it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago that I designed my first deck. And it was through the process of designing my first deck that I learned a lot about tarot and more about it. And and that's also when I realized really what draws me to tarot is the same thing that draws me to medieval art. We're seeing a journey, we're seeing a narrative, we're seeing a story. And the cool thing about tarot is that it's two-dimensional, right? So you're seeing this two-dimensional story play out in time and space in two dimensions. But unlike a painting or a book, it's the order is constantly changing, right? So what happens when all these relationships are constantly changing.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. And it's interesting how something so two-dimensional is used for something so beyond our physical
Mhm,
dimensions for psychic
mhm,
abilities.
mhm,
And and for you, what was your process? Because I've seen that you read tarot, you do readings as
mhm,
well. And
mhm,
what was your process for learning how to do readings in the style that you prefer to do it?
mhm. So again, I truly didn't. It was not something I really knew anything about at the time. I decided to make my first deck. I just said, let's do it. Um, so I started with doing a lot of research before I did anything, and I read a lot about the different interpretations of tarot, the different meanings, and one thing that really helped me put it into framework was, first of all, just thinking of the journey of the major arcana, that this is the fool's journey, and seeing everything through that lens helped me have a bigger framework to understand it. And then just sort of studying the different suits, the wands, the swords, the cups, and the pentacles, and just kind of learning about them in general. And then from there, learning about the individual cards was definitely a learning process. I mean, when I mostly read from my own decks, although I could read from other decks as well, because I have obviously a special relationship with them and I know them really intimately. And I really see, I mean, I can do sort of I'll typically do a Celtic cross spread or like a modified Celtic cross, or I'll do just a simple past, present, future spread. I like to keep it pretty simple. And I really see it, to me, I don't really identify as a psychic. I identify as, to me, what the tarot is for me is we're just looking at it together. We're creating this story together. And there's different stories, right? There's the story that's inherent in the cards. Then there's the story that I, as the reader who has some sort of knowledge or intuition about you, there's the story that I'm gonna see there as it relates to you. And then there's the story that you see for yourself in those cards and how they interact with your life. And those three stories together, to me, that's what makes a tarot reading.
That's a really wonderful way to look at it. I've never heard someone describe it that way. So thanks. And And so I remember I came across the Diana Tarot on Instagram. I think we had followed each other, and I thought this is so fascinating. And there is such a widespread love for Diana, Princess of Wales. There always has been, and there will continue to be. So I wanted to ask you, for you, what was it about her that drew you to want to do a tarot card deck as an homage to her?
Well, I mean, we all have feelings about Princess Diana, right? And I'm a millennial, so another really early memory. I remember being in the grocery store checkout line with my mom and seeing all the, wall to wall Princess Diana face headlines, uh, Princess Diana crying or Princess Diana smiling or Princess Diana holding a baby. Uh, and so I just from a really early age, I felt really fascinated by her. And also I've learned as I've done more work with the Diana Tarot, a lot of people have feel some sort of connection with Princess Diana, and specifically a lot of people feel some sort of connection with Princess Diana and their mom, which is something that I feel too. I think there's something about Princess Diana that for a lot of people, she is this kind of almost mystical mother icon. And a lot of people will associate her with their own mother and their own feelings about their mother.
Very interesting. I've always heard also people consider her like they put her in a station of sainthood, which
Mhm.
I'm very close to, proclaiming her a saint. And I would like to ask you this. I don't know how annoying this question may be, but was there an influence in when you created this deck for you from pop cultural references like The Crown, the movie Spencer, both of which have featured Diana as a character in the recent since the pandemic started, I think in the recent 2, 3 years. Yeah,
So, yeah, where do I begin with that? So it's a lot there. Just first of all, to touch on the saint thing, because I totally agree. That's really how I see her too. Um, I think so. I'm Catholic and I'm really interested in iconography. Obviously, it's a huge part of my art. And the one thing that's interesting about Catholic saints is they all have their icon, right? So the idea being that people who, these images were made often at a time when most people were illiterate. So they were designed such that anyone could look at the image and identify who the saint was and see their story through a simple icon. So St. Catherine has a wheel, um, and there's, John the Baptist has a lamb, etc. And Princess Diana has that iconographic status, I think, that we just see her and we associate her with, we just see an image of her and everything we know it like she. And then the other thing about kind of Diana as saint is she's this martyr, right? Somehow that she was this beautiful young woman who went through all this suffering, but she was a princess, and then she tragically died violently at a young age, and just all of that together, it's almost, it has this kind of religious quality to it, to her story. So yeah, I could not agree more. Then as far as the pop culture stuff, people do ask me that. I don't think it's annoying. I just think it's definitely, I think every generation is always making stuff about Diana. It's crazy. It's 2023, and half the time if you actually see physical tabloids, which you don't that much anymore, but if you physically see a magazine, it seems like one of those old kind of tabloid celebrity magazines. Half the time Princess Diana is on the cover in 2023. It's
yeah.
crazy. She's just so present still. And whether it's more like highbrow, highly produced films or TV or tabloids, I just think there's something about her. People are not over it yet.
I also grew up Catholic. I resonate a lot of iconography, although I'm not an artist or I haven't studied art and art history very much. Um, I also have this fascination of iconography myself, so I fully understand what you mean. And then with pop culture interest, I mean, I love watching The Crown, and it's because of The Crown that I bought Andrew Morton's book to read,
Oh
which
yeah, it's
I saw that you
classic.
featured in one of your cards too. And yeah, I'm about to read it soon. And what I want to ask you about is I want to ask you about a specific card, the full card. I saw that the full card it involves her wedding day. So why did you decide to start the deck with her wedding day in particular.
Yeah, so again, this is sort of the relationship with all of the cards in the deck between the traditional imagery, my own interpretation, and also working with really iconic images of Diana that we all have in our heads. Um, and the Fool, what is the Fool? The Fool is the most important. It's the primary card in the tarot. It's the zero. The whole major arcana is the Fool's journey. Uh, and so, yeah, I mean, it's when I designed the deck in order, so it was the first one I drew, and of course that one's so important. You really want to be deliberate about choosing the image for that card. And when I think of the Fool, in the Rider Waite deck, the Fool is stepping off a cliff, right? And but very happily, kind of just oblivious. And that's I mean, what else could we say about Diana's marriage? That she was sort of obliviously stepping off a cliff. She
Yeah.
was entering this insane world of royalty, international celebrity. She had no idea. She was a teenager. And everything else that happened at the same time, she became this basically world historical figure who made all these positive changes, and drew attention to a lot of important issues. So it's like, I think most of us it's good that she chose to marry Charles, but who knows if she had it to do again, would she have done it? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and apart from the traditional imagery of the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot deck and how it influenced this deck, is there a part of her life story that has particularly resonated the most with you or really stuck with you as you worked on this deck?
Good question. I mean, so when I first, the first book I read about Diana was the Andrew Morton book too. So I read that when I was uh, about 20, and I was living in a foreign country, um, with my boyfriend at the time, who became my husband. I didn't know anyone. I didn't speak the language, and I was very lonely. And I picked up the Andrew Morton book at the secondhand English bookstore and in town, and definitely, like, I was reading it and I was like, yeah, she's just like me, totally. you know and I feel like a lot of people have that reaction, because she's such a, that book is super emotional. She's like, oh, I'm so lonely, she's like very emotionally volatile and just going through all this trauma and drama. And at that moment I was really resonating with that. And but now I don't know. I think over time, maybe I think I've come to appreciate her more as being a bit. She was very media savvy, and by the time she'd been in the public eye for a few years, she really knew how to create an image and manipulate the media in the way that she wanted. And it's impressive. She became a master. So I think that's interesting, the way she created her own image.
Yeah, and I think you've taken that image that she created and also real life, the really deep real parts of her life story, and I have to say, what I'm about to say is you've created a wonderful deck, and what I want to say as well is there's so many decks out there that are based on public figures, or there's even one on like Disney villains, which is really cute. Not my style, but I mean, this is personal subjective opinion. I feel like
Mhm.
it's not easy to take something in the pop culture and create something like a tarot deck that I've come across that I would actually want to use for a reading. And your deck is something that I can't wait to use for a reading.
Oh.
So that's my personal opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of all tarot people, but it's just you created a deck that it truly is an homage to her. It doesn't feel like it could have been so different had it been in different hands. So I think it's a really beautiful homage. And how do you want folks to step away from using your deck or observing it, taking a look at it? What are feelings or thoughts you want them to step away with?
I mean, another word that I use a lot when I do tarot readings, and that I think of a lot in relation to tarot is archetype. And so every tarot card is basically an archetype, whether it's I don't know, the star, or the empress, or the king of pentacles. these are all people we could recognize in our life, or people we can be in different moments, right? And so when I'm reading tarot, I like to think of that. Okay, how is this figure expressing itself in your life right now? Is that you? Is that someone else in your life that's being the whatever, the Page of Wands, the Queen of Pentacles? Who is this for you right now? And the thing about Diana is she contained so much. She contained multitudes. So with a tarot deck, I wanted to show people all these different sides of her and let people kind of make up their own mind and just maybe relate to the various sides of her and the different personas she embodied during her life.
And there's one, actually I was just looking at the deck, and there's one card that I think it's the Prince of Swords that it's her receiving a reading from somebody.
Oh yeah.
Do we know if she ever
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
think I remember hearing about that she consulted with psychics
Oh
herself.
yeah. Like I think the Page of Swords is traditionally associated with this sort of thing, like spiritual guidance, learning, reaching out for answers from the universe and that sort of thing. And Diana was really into that stuff. She was into all kinds of spiritual healing and spiritual practices, more so towards the end of her life. And I actually don't know specifically about tarot, but I know she was really into spirituality and meeting with different kinds of healing people. And yeah, you'll actually, I want to recommend you, once you read Andrew Morton, that's number one. But you have to remember, when you read that book, she wrote that book with him, and she definitely had an agenda, which is cool, but it's her.
It's
So
really badass.
you have to read it through that lens that, okay, this is the story she wants people to hear. The next book I would say you should read is the Diana Chronicles by Tina Brown, because that gives more of a critical view. It's not anti-Diana by any means, but it's much more realistic and shows both the positive and negative sides of her, and a little bit behind the persona she wanted to present.
Got it. Okay. I'm looking at the book cover. I searched up as well, and I remember seeing this book in bookstores, and actually maybe on tabloids too, featured on tabloids. So, adding another book to my list of like 10 books I can't wait to read. Now I wanted to ask you as a last question, let's say someone wants to start their own tarot deck. What is the best advice you feel you could give to them?
I mean, so you asked me some questions about, or you made some comments about the deck, and thank you that you felt that it was really, I guess, going in depth on Diana, right? And I would say that, first of all, to someone who's interested in designing a tarot deck, way before you even do anything, you should definitely really think about a topic that's just like sets you on fire. You're going to be spending a lot of time with that. Tarot decks take a long time to draw, or to however you're going to create them. They take a long time to create. There's a lot there. And then hopefully you'll be spending a lot of time with the deck once it exists, and doing readings, etc. So yeah, I would only do a deck about something that absolutely drives you crazy, that you want to talk about all the time and learn a million things about. So that's number one. Number two, I mean, I think just go for it. My personal method is, I I did sort of organization and writing. So I did my own research about the interpretation of each card. And then I kind of meditated on that, on each one, and thought, okay, now that I feel really like I know all this stuff about Diana's life, what moment does that bring to mind to me? And so I kind of did all of that thinking first before I started doing any visual work. And that helped to sort of separate those two tasks.
Yeah, it sounds like the best way to go about it. Like do your research and let it inform the work itself, for sure. Now, how can our listeners find out more about you?
Well, again, my name is Jennifer May Reiland. Jennifer, Jennifer, May, like the month, May, and Reiland, Reiland. They can find the Diana Tarot Instagram. It's just the Diana Tarot, no spaces, on Instagram. And you can find my work under my name, Jennifer May Reiland. I have an Instagram, I have a website, I have everything. You just Google me. So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was really nice to talk to you.
If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact, and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.